Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Subversive History. I am flying solo today. We got a storm that has Phil out here, so I am running the production, and Johnny had work this morning, so it is just me. And today we are joined by Charlie Davis, who is the founder and executive director of SkatePal, which is an organization that aims to support young communities in Palestine through skateboarding. Subversive History is currently running a fundraiser for SkatePal, so we'll have more details about that in the description of the video. So any donations for the kids in Palestine is going to be greatly appreciated. And Charlie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, I'm glad to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and this might be a little bit different. Well, it is different than what we usually do on this channel. For people that have been following the channel, we're usually talking to historians, authors, maybe like some economists and things like that based on books they've written. But for anyone that knows me personally, I'm an avid skateboarder. I've been an avid skateboarder since I was 12 years old or so. And when I came across SkatePal, I just became so interested in it. We're like kind of like my advocacy for Palestine and my love of skateboarding kind of came together. And I was like, I gotta reach out and see if they're willing to talk to us on the channel.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I gave a really brief summary of what SkatePal is, but I figured that you would probably be the best person to describe that, or at least the best person in this conversation to describe that. So just to get things started, would you be able to provide a more detailed explanation of what it is that SkatePal is and what it does?
Sure. So initially, when I left school, I went as a volunteer to Palestine. There was like a center that was connected with a church that my mum worked in Scotland. And actually, my parents had lived out in Palestine, and I have a few relatives from Hebron and Jerusalem. So there was always that sort of aspect in the family, kind of pictures on the wall. So I had some idea. But there was an organization, and I went to go and I volunteered teaching English and music, and I took my skateboard. As a skater, you take it everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was no real skate scene there, but the kids were really excited at the skateboard. And as people will probably be aware, the kids in Palestine are quite hardy after decades of war and occupation and everything. So they took to it pretty hard and were like pretty aggressive, which is kind of what you need to be a good skateboarder.
Yeah.
And so I saw that initial enthusiasm, and I went back every year and took my board and did it. And then it was when Skateistan begun the work in 2012, I think, that I thought, like someone from Australia went to start something in Afghanistan where there wasn't really any scene. If he can do that, maybe I could do like a small project over there. So I reached out to a few youth centers that I knew. One of them in Ramallah said, yes, come and build a ramp and do classes. And so I went out there with a few volunteers and took some boards, built a mini ramp. And bit by bit, there was a bit more engagement, and some of the community and the kids and their families were keen. And then after a year or so, there was a local council that invited me to come and build a skate park in their town, where there was quite a lot of sporty people there. So they wanted to add in skateboarding too. And it kind of grew in that way. I mean, on the first trip that we did to build a ramp, I met Aram, who was 16 at the time. He's now our local manager. He's been there working with us the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's one of the difficult things is many of the young skaters, when they get older, they leave because of the situation. They try and study abroad, they work abroad. And so that really mitigates against having like an OG skate scene of like older who can manage things. And that's why
it's almost like brain drain when it comes to like academia or other professions or something like that. It's the same with skateboarding when you're in a place like Palestine or another country that might be having certain kinds of political issues. If someone, garners the ability to potentially go there and make a better life for themselves and potentially even get their family out of there, these things are going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell anyone there like what to do or not to go, obviously.
Right.
And I mean, as much as it was for like a number of years, just like providing younger kids with something fun to do, I was like, that in and of itself is worth doing. So I'm going to stick at that. But our plan in the long term was always to sort of step back from like leading all the classes and being on the ground and like not having to like tell the kids, I wait for the white internationals to come before.
Right. This is your thing. This is your scene. You can build the ramp. You know what I mean? Like once you know how to do it, once you have the, it can be your own thing. You don't need us to come out here.
But coming from I live in Edinburgh in Scotland.
Yeah,
I'm half American, but I've lived all my life in Scotland. And it took a long time for the skate scene to grow to a stage where even a skate shop was like a viable economic like operation here. So I was aware that things take a long time. So we did have basically volunteers doing classes for 8 months a year, every year up until 2000 and until the start of the war, October 7th. That was when I evacuated the last of the volunteers. But coincidentally, that was the last year that we had planned to do volunteers all year round anyway, because there was local organizations that we work with who do classes on their own. So we were going to have like volunteers there just for like a few months of the year, and then just encourage sort of skate tourism more, to sort of get out of the NGO dynamic, which I've seen a lot in Palestine, which obviously there's lots of good work to do, but can also lead to quite negative dynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that this interview isn't really about you as a person. It's more about SkatePal as an organization. But I feel like there's just some interesting things with your story that, your story as it relates to SkatePal. So I know that you said that your family had visited Palestine before, and that's how you ended up there for an English teaching volunteer program. What was your concept of Palestine before you went? Like, was it just kind of something that sounded like oh, I can go to another country and teach English? Were you already passionate about the situation in Palestine, or was this something that you kind of ended up there and then kind of had an awakening that you wanted to help people?
It's a good question, and in all honesty, it's quite difficult to think back to how much I knew when I was 18, because I've been there for 20 years almost, on and off, doing stuff. So but I think probably my parents are my mom especially, she was like, oh yeah, in the weekend we took a spa weekend to Gaza in the 80s. That's what we went on. So different world. And my aunt was teaching in Bethlehem, traveling all around, married a guy from Hebron. This was it was a different time than when I went. So I did have some knowledge, but I had just left school, so I was quite naive as to everything that was going on. And I guess I was a little bit apprehensive when my mum was like, "Oh, just go. It'll be fine. You have a good experience, and you'll learn, and you get to meet new people, basically."
Right.
And when I went, and for the first time, there was in Jenin, there was a lot of active shooting every night between, Hamas, Fatah, between the army, Israeli army, and Hamas. I was, oh wow, this is quite an intense situation. But I mean, as an international guy from the UK, I was never really a threat or a target for anyone. I was doing my own thing. So I think it was a bit of a awakening to be oh right, this is a reality here. But everyone was so friendly. It was it's a very lucky experience to have, to go to somewhere where you you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, but you can kind of integrate with people and really open your eyes to be this is another part of the world which I had never thought of going to, but I've got the chance to go here now. So I didn't really know a lot. I think in the first trip I did learn a lot and did tours here and there to see what was going on, seeing the wall, seeing what was happening, and just from meeting people every day and hearing people's experiences. People talk about what's going on a lot, but I think before I went, I didn't really have that many expectations or ideas as to what it would be like, really.
Yeah. So I know you had made reference to this a couple times already about how friendly everyone was, but just to kind of when you started SkatePal in 2013, what was the community response? I know obviously the kids were very enthused about the situation. They're kids. There's a new kind of activity, and it's exciting and it's cool. And but what about the rest of the community? What about older people? What about did everyone kind of embrace this? Did you get any pushback or anything like that?
I mean, I think kind of by default, I'm going to hear more of the positive feedback than the negative feedback, because those are the ones that are going to come and speak to me and get involved. But I mean, even though skateboarding it doesn't inhabit that enigmatic space between sport and hobby and lifestyle, and you don't really know what it is, and wherever you go in the world, the culture is slightly different, though it does share some similar things. But I think largely it was seen quite well, because people didn't really know what it was. And if the kids were up for having fun, and I could speak Arabic, so I could communicate with them. I kind of knew a bit about what, because I had done a degree by that point. So I studied Islam, I studied Arabic, and that gave me I was a lot more legit in people's eyes.
Right.
So I don't think there was that much negative. I think most of the negative feedback was it's dangerous. Kids are going to hurt themselves. But it wasn't oh, it's a Western imperial import.
Right. Yeah.
Really get that. I'm sure there are people who think that. I mean, people think everything, but I didn't hear much negative feedback. It was mainly positive.
When when you went there, like at first, when you first broke out that skateboard, or like in that initial phase of you being there with the skateboard, did anyone there have like, did anybody come up to you and like know skateboarding culture, like drop the name of some pros or like videos or anything like was anybody like clue, like any like teenager or anything like there, like already kind of clued in?
Not that I knew. I mean, Aram, who I met there, he'd only been skateboarding for like 2 months. Then there was some like Lithuanian guy who was doing some work there, and he left his board for Aram and his mate and was like, have some fun with this. But
Yeah.
I think there was a few guys up in a town called Kalkilia who had this X Games team thing, and they had some like rollerblades and BMX and skateboarders. There was one or two, but I didn't meet them on that trip, and no, there was like largely like I didn't hear any connections with the skate world. And actually, in the beginning, when I went over, part of my thinking was like, oh, I'll bring some skate magazines and some skate videos and kind of show them what it's all about.
Right.
But I quickly realized that maybe that's not the best idea, because I don't want to be introducing anything which could be seen as like going against the culture too much, especially in the village.
You don't want to go down there and be like, yeah, this is Baker 3, you know, check this out.
Yeah, I'm like, right, what you need is a bag of weed and just get out and skate. Like, I don't want that to happen, because you want to basically, you want to show all the like the positive community bringing together, exercise, like mental health, like all the benefits that we know inherently from skateboarding in the more conservative communities. And then after that, once it branches out, people have the internet. People will like find their own like niche and like decide what they want and what they don't want from the culture.
So how long was it after you initially organized SkatePal that you built your first skate park in Palestine?
The first trip we did, it was just a mini ramp, and I think it was the following year that we built our first skate park. It wasn't a very good one. We were like a volunteer team. I couldn't like attract the same like caliber of people right at the beginning.
Right.
But we built something small up in the north, and it was just like a year on, I think, because someone got in touch saying, oh, I love what you're doing. I'm an engineer and a skateboarder. Let's go and like design a park and build one. So we managed to like to find someone who had some land, and we went to go and do it. And there were lots of issues like going along the way, because I was learning how to work within the context of like councils and organizations and like politics, and coming in from the outside and working with people on the inside. And there was it was like a very steep learning curve. But yeah, it was only, I think it was like the following year that we did like a project, like an actual like concrete skate park project.
And do you have any, like, did you like allocate people that had backgrounds in building skate parks, or were you kind of DIYing it? Like in the first go around when you didn't have a lot of resources, or I guess you could say pull to get like better or more experienced people. Did you have you ever built a skate park before you built one in Palestine, or like, did you have previous experience, or was this something you were just kind of winging?
No, I had built precisely zero things before I went in any aspect of my life. But the first time I just got like a mini ramp plan from like DIY skate ramps online, which was easy to follow, and it's not that hard to build like a wooden mini ramp. But for the concrete one, it was like basically kind of, I think, put a few adverts out in, maybe it was a skate magazine or online somewhere, to try to get a few skaters and like people who could build. But it was a bit of a mishmash. It was people that like with all like good intentions, but varying levels of experience and skill. Right. Not really like the caliber of what we had like later on, but we kind of needed, that was the first like stepping stone to like realize like what it takes and what you need to do. And like it was quite early on in the days of like of the social skateboarding like project world. Like there wasn't a lot of other people doing it at the time, so it was a lot of like lessons learned. But no, it was kind of like a hodgepodge of like skaters and like engineers and people with no experience, some people with a bit more experience, but no one with like a proper experience of like skate park construction. And if you compare that to like the next one that we're going to do, everyone has got like years and years of skate park experience building. So it's been a steep curve.
Well, a question that I wanted to ask, and I want to ask this context in the pre-October 7th sense, because I know after October 7th, this whole question, it takes on a different reality. But what did you notice as like a difference in terms of trying to build or get materials into, say, Gaza versus the West Bank? This is prior to October 7th, because I know the nature of that changes dramatically after October 7th. But even prior to that, I understand that there's like a lot of like differences between how Gaza can operate and how the West Bank can operate. Can you speak on like the difficulties of potentially getting in materials and permits and things like that in a place like Gaza versus the West Bank?
So we haven't built in Gaza Strip. There are two skate parks that have been built there from different organizations that I know struggled to get things in, and I don't know all the ins and outs of how they got everything in. But over the years, we have got equipment through into Gaza, like through people that can like to do have like a permit to get in and out.
Yeah.
I know it's very difficult. You have to have the connections and like be connected with certain people to make that happen. I was always apprehensive about doing that because I really wanted to sort of base myself in a place where I knew it was going to be somewhat sustainable, so that we built a park, it was going to last. We could send more skateboards in the future. But it was amazing that there was other groups early on. I think the first one I heard was something like Skate Jam, and there was some like Italian anarchic collective that went to build the other parks, which was amazing because it's such a hard place to get in. I mean, you can buy all the materials there to do it. Some of the tools you have to like bring in. But it was a lot more. It would have been for them a lot more difficult to get going and to get all the team there and to build it, and you'd have to have all the right connections, whereas it's a lot easier in the West Bank for that to happen.
Would you have to go through Egypt, or would it be possible to do it through Israel?
I think they did go through Egypt. I think they did. I think that's probably the easier route.
Right.
But I've never tried, just because I was fairly sure that I wouldn't get in because I didn't have the connections.
One thing that I read on your website that I was really interested in, and I think it would be worth speaking on, is that I think that you had said that in terms of like women and girls in Palestine, that there was like a 50% participation rate when it came to the skate classes and skating and things like that, which, even compared to the United States, where skateboarding is as big as it's going to be everywhere, you don't go to the skate park and see, 50% women and girls. So could you kind of speak to the way that women and girls in Palestine had kind of taken to the skateboarding project?
Yeah, so I think early on, during like the main skate park that's used a lot in Asira, like next to Nablus, where we got the land from the council, one of the sort of stipulations at the beginning was we want to have classes with boys and girls at the park, and there was quite a lot of pushback because culturally that's not really so accepted.
Right.
Again, I think because skateboarding, people didn't know how to classify it.
Right.
Because sports are still like segregated, but in the skate park, it was kind of allowed. It was like more of a family-friendly. It was more like a play park.
It's like a playground. Yeah.
So from that aspect, we told the council, look, we really want to make it for girls and boys. And after a bit of like haggling, they were like, okay, fine, we'll accept that it's like a space that we'll promote for everyone. And we did classes for the girls in the girls' school and classes for the boys in the boys' school. And then in the park, we did it mixed. We also had like girls-only days as well, because we were aware that there are parents that would want the girls just to go for the only girls sessions.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of like try to mix it. I mean, obviously you don't want to press too hard against any cultural norms when you're like an outsider, because that's going to mitigate against having a successful outcome and what you're trying to do. But it's worth seeing what the appetite is for, well, can we do it? And you notice when you start, I think like a lot of maybe like young men that you speak to in the skate world, like, women can't really skate as well. And what they don't realize is because there's a lot fewer women skating. So if you start from the same age when you're young and you start at the same time, like you realize that, boys and girls are the same. They're just as good, just as bad, or just as capable or not at skateboarding. So a lot of the kids are quite young, and the girls and the boys, they were skating together. And I guess there's a bit of like competitive edge between them, but it was mainly because we started from scratch basically, and we started young. That's how we do it. In the UK, if we're doing something new, you're not starting from scratch. The culture's been there for like 50 years, and the park's been there for like a long time. And as you said, we're gradually seeing the like gender demographics change over time. But from then, it was like largely sort of engineered, sort of be like, no, this is for everyone. These are the girls only days and boys, but it's something that everyone can do. A bit like say swimming. That's not all boys or girls, but it's quite a mixed thing. So we tried to kind of align it with those sort of activities.
Yeah, and to your point, and this is something that, isn't directly related to Palestine, but just in general, when it comes to women getting involved in skateboarding, I started skating in the early 2000s where, there was Alyssa Steamer, but that was pretty much like it at that point. And there was this like very widespread belief that women were just genetically inferior to men when it came to skateboarding. And now after, the decades since that we've seen it become more, I guess you could say, culturally permissible for women to get involved in skateboarding, watching Street League and stuff like that. You're seeing like, I know like Tim Pool and people like that say that women just simply can't skate as good as men. It's just a natural inevitability. And now we're seeing that as more women are getting involved in skateboarding, we're seeing them, whatever, front blunt kickflip out on handrails and things like that. Like all this stuff is happening, by women as well. And we're seeing that skill, the disparity in the skill level is rapidly closing.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the things about skateboarding is that it's not just about, because obviously on average, men are going to be able to jump higher and pop higher, and like the muscles are bigger, but that's just like a fact that you can't get away from. But skateboarding is not only about that.
No.
Like, skateboarding is about style, it's about tricks. Like the people that you like to watch, not because they're ollieing the highest or like jumping down the biggest stuff. Some people like that, yeah, for fine, but it's more about like looking good on the board, and that's not like gender dependent.
No, not at all. Not at all. One thing that I was curious about is, have you worked with any professional skateboarders, like anyone, like what has been the affiliation between SkatePal and like the larger, the skate industry at large when it comes to pros or bigger companies, the more household names of the industry? Has there been any affiliation with that sphere with SkatePal?
So yeah, we have had like interactions, because we like early on, I think 2015, we took the Isle team over. So like the guys that used to be on like Blueprint in the past, like we took them over to do a tour of the West Bank. And we have met like other individuals. Like we have Ryan Lay, who's like an ambassador for us. Chris Jones, skates for Nike. He was like ambassador for us. We got to meet Rick McCrank. Rick McCrank,
that's my guy, man.
On the Vice
Skate Maps. Skate Maps. Wasn't he doing like a Vice thing called Skate Maps or something like that?
Was it because we were in a series? What was it called? I forget the name of the series, but there was like 7 episodes about like more less well known skate cultures or areas. I forget the name. Maybe it was that. I forget what it was, but it was like a Viceland production.
Yeah.
And we got to have an episode with him and meet him, and we did have a lot of connections with the kind of like larger skate world, and like people like Thrasher have been like helping us out, and like people in the industry have been like really helpful, and larger distributors, like even in the UK we get like distributed from our merchandise, and we get like really good rates, and they help us out a lot. So a lot of like goodwill towards us in the skate world. So yeah, I've been really glad for everyone that we've met. It's been great.
Yeah. That's actually the funny thing about that you mentioned, Ryan Lay. That's actually how I discovered it. I was just like kind of sitting around in my living room watching old like Epically Latereds, because I just get lost in like a rabbit hole of that sometimes. And the Ryan Lay one came on, and it's like a 25-minute episode. I was just watching it, like hanging out. And then within that, they mentioned that he became an ambassador for SkatePal. And I was like, I've never heard of that before. This was maybe 2 weeks ago. And I looked it up and I emailed you, and here we are. That was really the genesis for this whole thing.
That's sick. Okay.
And I wish, speaking of your merchandise, I bought a couple things off the website. It hasn't arrived yet because I'm in the US. I was hoping I could rock some of it for the interview, but I haven't received it just yet. But one of these days soon, I'll be wearing some of them shirts. Another question I wanted to ask, and it's because I've been to Cuba twice, and I'm curious. I'm not sure how much you know about the situation in Cuba, but I know I've seen things like, Reynolds and Ashad Ware went down to Cuba, and I know that Cuba suffers from a similar issue of a difficulty of like, there's like an industry of skateboarding and a culture of skateboarding that has made attempts to go into Cuba and, bring boards, do donations, things like that, because it is a nation where it's extremely difficult to get in boards or build anything. Do you see similarities or parallels between the situation in Cuba as you do in Palestine?
I mean, I don't know a lot about the scene in Cuba, but it does sound similar. I mean, there's a lot of, we don't have a shortage of people wanting to donate equipment, and we send things over, but it is difficult to get things in. Like we have shipped like larger stuff over that it goes obviously through Israel proper to get into Palestine. And you don't know if it's going to arrive. Like the mail there is quite intermittent and like arbitrary whether it gets in or out. So we do have a few like addresses of people that we know that we send things to, but it's definitely not as easy to just like set up our continuous stream of things. It may be slightly easier than Cuba. I think it's like because like the country itself of Palestine isn't wanting to like isolate itself. Right. Maybe Cuba does want to isolate itself like a bit more. But yeah, it's definitely not just like, I'll get in a plane and go and visit, and like you have to plan it out a bit more than that. So I think there are some similarities probably.
Would you say that that's like the major bottleneck when it comes to doing the work that you want to do? It's not about sourcing all the materials. It's about the real challenge isn't getting the things, it's getting them inside of Palestine. Is that the biggest hurdle?
I would say, yeah, in terms of the biggest hurdles, yeah, obviously for Gaza, impossible. That is like, you can't get things in, and even the best of times, it was really hard. But yeah, for us at the moment, just I think being able to be sure that we can get X in there or get X, Y in there, that is one of the biggest hurdles. I mean, I think some of the other things which make it difficult, obviously, is just everyone that you work with has like PTSD. Everyone's like depressed. Everyone's like finding it hard to like continue life, and like that's the major obstacle. It's just that like often people just can't like bear to continue. And so it's not uncommon where you like, speaking with your team and there's like, I'm off for a week because I have to deal with shit.
Right.
I can't deal with it right now. So the kind of direct effect of what's happening. But in terms of logistics, yeah, getting things in and out is pretty hard. And I mean, even like getting yourself and like people in and out, you don't always know. It's not as easy as just like you have the visa, on you go and get in. So There are like restrictions or things happen or checkpoints close and borders close. Like you can never like guarantee that something's going to happen. So we had like a new project that was going to be started the other week in a town, and then it was closed. There was a checkpoint, then it was completely closed, and then that didn't happen. So it's just the unknown of things being uncertain. That's what I think makes things like mentally and physically like very tough to sort of like plan with any sort of exactitude of what you want to do. So it's just kind of like you have to like respond to things in real time.
Do you have any ambassadors or just like people that are involved in skateboarding in Israel proper, like citizens of Israel that then also go to the occupied territories to assist in like skateboarding activities or SkatePal ventures?
There's a few like friends of the skateboarders in the West Bank, like other like Arab Israeli people who've been helping us in terms of like receiving things and sending it over. And we had like someone in the UK embassy in Tel Aviv who was like, yeah, you can send stuff to me and I'll help you get it across. So
nice.
we do look out for connections there. I mean, you have to obviously be careful about like who you work with and make sure that everyone's okay with it, because depending on where it is and who it is, like people are going to be like, I'm not okay with that, or I'm okay with that. But yeah, we have to have some addresses inside Israel proper that we can send things to be sure. So we're doing a bit more shipping direct into Ramallah, hopefully with their FedEx. But yeah, it's a bit unsure. So we have relied on them to get stuff in. Yeah.
Okay. So now this is like a pretty big question in this whole conversation, and that is obviously you've been working in the capacity of SkatePal in Palestine since 2013. Obviously, following the events of October 7th, 2023, we now see what is, a full-scale conflict going on in Gaza, as well as, many more issues also coming up in the West Bank, just surrounding that whole situation in terms of security measures and strife and things like that. So, what has changed for SkatePal and its activities since October 7th? Like, what has it been like for you for the past year and a half or so?
Well, I think one thing that, as I mentioned before, we were going to have like volunteers out in 2024. We were hoping to have more people out, which we couldn't do. I think the biggest thing was things were just on pause for a while because everyone was just like depressed and like, what the fuck is going on? That was the main vibe. And like, we didn't want to post any. So we basically make most of our money through our shop because that's more reliable than like grants and donations, because you basically create your own income. But we felt like we couldn't promote like merchandise while this was happening. So we were kind of like, we didn't say anything and we left. We basically just like said, these are the journalists that are saying what's going on, like follow this. If you want to give money, give it to the Red Cross, give it to these organizations that are doing the medical aid. So that was our focus for like 6 or 7 months. We're just like, right, we can't, there's other things that are more important right now than just skateboarding, because there's no appetite for it.
Right.
And then like once, we get to month 8 or 9 with the rest of the local team, we're like, right, what are we going to do? Do we want to kind of like continue doing what we were doing before and try to move towards that? And bit by bit, the rest of our team were like, right, okay, well, we're in this, like, this is a situation, and this is a new reality. We've gone past that stage of like, what is going on and just the unknown and kind of like everything like falling in. And they're like, right, okay, well, we're here now. Let's try to like redo some of the classes. Let's try to get a bit more momentum again, because we need, instinctively, they know that when they skate, it feels good, and it's a good, like, mentally and physically is good, but I guess it's really hard to get to that stage when you feel so low.
Right.
So we had a large gap where we just like tried to make ends meet over here. And I mean, like, we do have like a big following, and a lot of people, you know, buy our stuff because they like what we do, and we're really grateful for having like a loyal audience that is like, without them we wouldn't be here now. So it was thanks to them that we were able to like make enough that we could like pay people enough to keep on going after that. But now we're kind of in, it seems like it's a bit like strange thing to say, but in like much better position now, because we do have things happening, and that is like, right, we're going to do whatever we can. And even Rajab with the Gaza skate team, he's still doing sessions there. He's still he's still planning like a new mini ramp. He's still doing things, and people in the West Bank are right. We have to. It's either that or nothing. So we're like, so we have to do something basically.
Now, I don't mean to be insensitive asking you this question, but I feel like it's important to ask. Obviously, you've been doing work in the occupied territories of Palestine for over a decade, and I'm sure that you've developed a lot of connections and affiliates and people that are part of the team in both Gaza and the West Bank. You know, since this situation has unfolded following October 7th, have people that you've known personally or people that have been affiliated with SkatePal, like, have you seen like them directly affected by the conflict going on?
Yeah. I mean, I know there was like a number of people that like have died that I didn't know them personally, but or attacked or held or whatever. I mean, this is pretty commonplace, I guess. But yeah, even the people that we work with, I mean, you can see from like week to week, like sometimes they don't even like show up for work because they just can't deal with it. So it does affect everyone, like all the time. I mean, in the larger towns, you're gonna, like in the West Bank, if you're in Ramallah, like close to like the hub, it affects you less. But you also have those like feelings of like, you know, oh, I'm so like privileged because I'm in like a safe place, when you're not really privileged, but in relation to someone else, then you feel like guilty that you're in that position. Mm-hmm. So like, as you go down from like the UK to like the West Bank into Gaza, you all have like different like feelings of like privilege or guilt that you're not.
It's like a scale.
But it is really hard, and everyone needs to have time off, and it's important even from the UK team. And for me, I'm taking like some time off in a week, because if you're focusing on it all the time, it just wears you down like a lot. And like obviously the folk in Gaza don't have that privilege.
Don't have the privilege.
Like, right. In order to you to help and to do stuff, you need to take time off and to not like, you know, beat yourself up all the time. I have to do that even in Scotland. Just to be sure I'm like, right, I want to be doing the best thing that I can. We need to like, you know, to talk as a group and like make sure that we're all okay. And so like after that happened, there's a lot more emphasis on us like checking in on each other to make sure we're all in a good space, and if we can help each other like where we can, because obviously we help financially in terms of skateboarding, but we're also like quite a close knit team.
Right.
Which is, and it's hard for anyone to like see what's going on.
I think this next question may be the most important question of the interview. And this question is for anyone listening that maybe has never skateboarded in their life, and they've been following the situation in Gaza and in Palestine more broadly. And they might watch this conversation and they might hear us promoting SkatePal as an organization and having a fundraiser for it. And, you know, I've skateboarded for most of my life, so I have a better understanding of it. For the people that don't, I think there might be a question on their minds of like, why skateboarding? Why now? We are seeing all these images from Gaza of people losing their lives, of people emaciated from lack of food and things like that. We know that there's not great drinking water, you know, just supplies, even, you know, morbid things like, you know, body bags and things like that are in low supply. I think people might watch this and say, why skateboarding? Why should I give my money to a fundraiser that's going to get like skateboards to kids? Like, it seems so trivial in the grand scheme of everything that's going on. What would you say to someone thinking that in terms of why it is still so important to promote skateboarding in these areas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And I mean, if you have the choice of like water or a skateboard, I think you should choose water, because there's certain things that you definitely need to survive. You don't need skateboarding to survive. Although I think, you know, in terms of like the people that we support in Gaza, we can't get skateboards in anyway. So we send them like money and they can do whatever they want with that. If
Right.
that's like buying food and drink, that's buying food and drink. That's still supporting the skateboard scene because those are the individuals that we know we have a connection with. So we're supporting them rather than only like the skateboarding aspect of it. But I guess the other argument that I would say to people who ask this is like, well, what's the point of living if you don't have any enjoyment? You need to have
Right.
something fun to do. Otherwise, there's no point in being alive. Like if you just have water and food and you're like locked in a room, that's not really a life. And it's a relative,
especially for a kid, you know, especially for a kid with a way less understanding. Like, because I can imagine in the mind of a child, even with all this going on, you probably still have an urge to go play. Like, you don't understand like all this like complex political stuff. Like, you probably still have that urge to occupy yourself through recreational activity.
Exactly. It's not like it's not an either or. It's not like, do you provide food or do you provide skateboarding? And I mean, people that want to like give money to us to support our work are doing it because they like recognize that you know, skateboarding is something which is fun. It brings kind of a community together. It's good mentally, it's good physically. It's a challenge against yourself. There's loads of physical and mental benefits that skateboarding brings. Not to say that other sports don't do that as well. And it is true that there's a certain amount of like contrived space you have to build in a village to get like a skate park. But a lot of the money that we raise, like that wouldn't be going anywhere else. We specifically went to make money ourselves, and like now we're like, you know, we produce merchandise, get the money. That's not money that would be going in. People buy it because they want the stuff. So if it was like, oh, we'll just take this US aid money that's going towards food for skateboarding, that would be awful. That's not what you want to do. And also, I didn't want to be taking grants for other stuff that could be used in Palestine, which is kind of why we like, right, let's focus on the brand side of things, because then it's like a legit source of income that wouldn't exist otherwise. So I'm quite happy with the way that the income stream is coming in. We obviously have a few small grants here and there from like sports development groups or people that really want to do what we're doing, but
which wouldn't be going to food anyway. They would be going to some other sporting thing.
Exactly. And I mean, I think one of the like the real benefits is we have like a strong community, and the skate community is strong, and it stretches between towns, and it's a way that we've connected with people in Gaza that we wouldn't have connected with before. And like you can see that, you know, promoting a skateboard scene is a way that really humanizes people that in the news are basically seen as like victims or like dehumanized. It's kind of hard to, you know, it's hard for me to connect with someone from Pyongyang. Yeah. But if I saw them in a skate video, there's an element on a human element. You can connect that because you understand it's such a different like reality. Right. And I think that is also something which is really helpful for just like for people to connect and to be aware of what's going on and to engage in whatever way they want to engage. If they see, oh, there's a whole community of young people doing something productive, like skateboarding shows that, right, these people want to do something productive. They're making films, they're building parks. They're not bad. Right. If media says they're bad, they're doing something positive, and positive that I also do. So I think there's a lot of ways that people can like reevaluate their like prejudice, for example, from seeing things like this. And so it's important to do that. That's not the main reason. The main reason is I love skateboarding. I saw the kids love it as well. I was like, who am I to deny them something that I can just come over and give? There's no one stopping me. Right. Like come over and bringing boards and skating with them. And I mean, it's the same for you and anyone that skates. Like it's become such a big part of your life, and your friends are there, and there's so many positive things. There are some negative things which you can avoid, but yeah, I think that's it.
Well, and I was actually going to ask that, but I think you touched it on it already. But just to clarify, my question was going to ask is if your donation structure changed since October 7th. Like I was going to ask if you had kind of transitioned from purely sending skateboarding materials to potentially like assisting with things like food and water and things like that. But it sounded like what you said is that you're making kind of like monetary donations to people that are in Gaza. And it's like, hey, if you want to skateboard or want to do something skateboarding with this, or, you know, obviously if your basic needs aren't being met, you can use it for that. So just for anyone that may be considering donating to the fundraiser, would you say that money isn't just purely for like decks and wheels and trucks and things like that could also potentially end up being food, water, things like that?
Yeah. So a lot of the money. So yeah, the model that we had before, we had international volunteers who would fundraise, and then we would take that to pay for the overheads. But now it's mainly from the shop and for other like fundraising things. But the money that we use, so we give like monthly like stipends, for example, to the organization in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. And on the letter of the contract, it's like, do whatever you want with this, because they've proven themselves. That's why we give money to them and not other people, because they've been doing it for a long time. And we're like, right, we believe in you. We can see what you're doing on Instagram. We can see what you're doing. We have got them equipment. We've got them cameras and other stuff. But like everyone, if you're an organization, you need money, and you can use that for whatever you want. If that's for living costs, that's for living costs, because you wouldn't continue doing what you were doing. So, I mean, we can get a lot of hardware donated. We produce our own skateboards that we then send over there as well. So we can provide the hardware, but you basically need to provide enough money so that people can continue doing like what they want to do. Right. And that's something which at the beginning for me was really hard to get money for SkatePal, just to pay me to do the work, to do anything. People want to get money to build a ramp, want to get money for a skateboard, and that's great, but that doesn't make a sustainable project. That makes a one-off project, and that's the kind of pitfall of like major like grants and sort of donations of that kind, is that like if it's an individual, if it's just like a one-off, that's great, but if you're developing a scene, it has to be a bit more continuous. And if we give money to Rajab and he uses it to buy food for him and his family and the other kids to skate, amazing. That's right.
100%. Yeah. And one thing just on that point too, that I wanted to share, I wanted to allow you to answer it as well, but just on that topic of like why skateboarding, with everything going on right now with the bombs falling and the aid being, the issues with the aid and the lack of food and lack of clean drinking water, someone might say, why skateboarding? And I found this quote on your website from a skateboarder in Gaza. And I think it was just for anybody listening, it's really important to hear this. And he says, I would like to say that if God forbid something happens to me or I become a martyr, please continue my sports career and support the youth and children so that they can have the opportunity to participate in tournaments abroad so the world can see we deserve it. And like, I think that encapsulates it right there. Like, because over here from like our perspective in like maybe the West or whatever, you see the situation in Palestine, you might trivialize something like a skateboard. Like, why would I be donating $1 for a skateboard when I could be donating $1 to UNICEF or something like that? And I feel like that skateboarders quotation there is so important for like what that can actually mean to a person, especially when they're living in such a tumultuous circumstance, to have that skateboarding. And this person saying like, hey, if I lose my life, please continue doing this. Please continue this skateboarding situation. And it's like, even in the face of his own morality, he's saying like, please, I'd like to see skateboarding continue here. I can see how important it is and how beneficial it is for these kids. I know that I didn't really ask you a question, but do you have anything to comment on that?
I mean, I think it's just such a strong statement that you just wouldn't think of saying it like in a country like the States or the UK. But it does like go to show, like a lot of people that skate, it becomes like an identity of like, right, I have a job, I have my friends and family, but what I really want to do with my time, what gives me the most pleasure is this one thing.
Right.
And like, as the quote says, like recognizing that, which is why, I started doing SkatePal in the first place. I was like, this is such a positive thing in my life, which, working in the shop wasn't really that of a positive thing. My family is positive, but that's very personal. But this activity can be done anywhere. And it's brought so much joy to my life that you just wanted to like share it with other people. So it speaks a lot to what skateboarding can offer. It also speaks a lot to that person's character as well, though.
Right. And then the other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up to that point is that, I know it's a, there's a shirt, but also like the, what you provided is that kid doing a kickflip on the rubble. There's like a bombed building with like kind of like a slanted piece of concrete, just a piece of rubble. And he goes up there and does a kickflip, and it says, Gaza, kickflip in the rubble, we will never stop. And obviously the rubble implies that this is during, the campaign where the bombs are dropping and things like that going on in Gaza, but there's still these kids out there that are going out into the, like, almost in a defiant kind of way. Like, hey, you bombed this building. We just got up there and filmed a kickflip on it, which for me, that's so inspiring and awesome. But to see that persistence in the face of all of this, I don't want to make you rehash, but do you have any comments on like that situation, like the kickflip on the rubble?
Yeah, I mean, things like that. I mean, I think like the rest of our team like wake up every day and I'm just amazed at like what he's doing and the fact that he still like has the resilience to continue doing that despite everything else. I mean, that was the first thing that we released after our long hiatus since
Right.
October 7th. We had like six months we didn't post or share or like sell anything really on the shop. And then we're like, right, if we're going to produce something new, it has to be specific to what's going
Right.
on. So that is Rajab, who's the founder of the Gaza Skate team, who we give monthly to. And we were speaking to him, and we're like, right, we have an idea. We want to like raise money for you. So all the proceeds of that, we're going to him.
Yeah.
And so it has a message from him in Arabic and English, and then just the sort of like the images of him doing that trick. It was such an iconic moment for him and for us, for the whole skate scene in like Palestine. It kind of encapsulated the struggle in a very real way. So I mean, that's the thing that we produce that has the most impact for me, and I think for a lot of people as well. But I mean, he's very inspirational. I mean, just incredible human to keep on doing what he's doing. And I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to speak to him on and off, like when he has internet and like when he's moving around. But hopefully one day we'll actually get to meet him in real life. But I've known him for like years online, just chatting on Facebook and stuff. But he's kind of he's one of the reasons why I think other skaters in the West Bank are still inspired to keep on doing what they were doing.
You guys got to get another run of that shirt done. I couldn't get a large.
Yeah, it's being made now because it's a lot. So,
all right, let me know when it's back in because I'm definitely going to grab one.
Yeah, we have. So the issues we have is we have a very small like storage space in London. So it's that thing of you have a small team because you don't have that much money, but then you have to sell more to make ends meet. So it's always quite a tight sort of game of getting enough in and out. But we're having like more released in a few weeks.
Okay, cool. So just getting towards the end of the interview here, I wanted to kind of ask, what are the current projects that you have going on for SkatePal?
So in terms of us as like the UK side of it, obviously we're sort of coordinating with the other organizations and the classes that they're doing, specifically in the West Bank. But the major project we have is we're aiming to do a new skate park in Ramallah, which will be like our flagship skate park there, which will be the hub. It's been 8 years in the making to get this bit of land. We haven't gone public yet with it all because it's still sort of like we're still making sure that everything is okay. But that's the one thing that I was like, I want to do this. If SkatePal closes down, we want to build a big skate park in the main hub so that then it would continue. So that is one thing. Rajab in the Gaza Strip, he's been like filming a lot, and we're hoping to like to put together something which will like showcase the work that he's been doing that we will like release in the UK.
Yeah. I was going to say, you guys got to make a video. I know that might be so hard now, but like an actual full-length video of like multiple parts from skaters from the West Bank and Gaza would be so sick.
That is something that we'd love to do.
Yeah.
That's something that we're hoping to do in the future is to like, if we keep on going in the current entity that we are, to have a team, SkatePal team, where we like basically sponsor people.
Yeah.
And even like, pay them to like ride for us.
Right.
Rajab is hoping to build like a new mini ramp in Gaza soon, so we'll be like fundraising for that. We've got new classes beginning in the West Bank. We have like various projects that we have in terms of like fundraising things in the UK. It's like partly to raise money, but partly it's kind of more of an advocacy network of like promoting Palestine as a place and like telling people what's going on and things like that.
Just awareness, just awareness.
Awareness like, as well, because we're not on the ground all the time, but. Yeah, our main focus, other than the shop, which it does sometimes feel a bit weird because you kind of put on your business hat.
Yeah,
and we were more of an NGO on the ground, but like as a team, we're like, right, it makes more sense if we can just make the money to give it to people doing it. So it sometimes is a bit of a weird, what's the word? You have that sort of like a paradox, kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. Where you're like, right, I'm having to like order and make sure the inventory is there, the invoices, and like what's the profit margin on this, things which are so like far away from right at the beginning. But we've, as a team, like every few months we come together to be like, where are we adding value? How can we add value? Are we still like, does it still make sense for us to be an organization? And the option of like closing down is always on the table when and if that is the best thing for the skate scene. But at the moment it's not, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So our main like project focus is this new like flagship skate park, which will serve like the main like cultural hub of the West.
Just a random question that just came into my head. Like with your work with Palestine, have you noticed any other skaters in like the surrounding Arab world, like whether it be from Lebanon or Jordan or Iraq or Syria, or any of those, or Egypt or any of those surrounding countries? Have you made any connections with skaters or skater scenes, or is there even skate scenes in those countries that you've come into contact with by working in Palestine?
So in Amman, Jordan, yes. Mohammed Zakaria, who runs Seven Hills in Amman, which is kind of like a similar organization to SkatePal. We've known him for a long time. He's helped out with like builds for us, and we've like, you know, we have a connection with them 100% because we can get over there. You can't get into Syria or Lebanon or Egypt that easily.
Right. Yeah, it's too easy. Yeah.
There's no borders. So I know that my colleague Theo went to Lebanon and met some of the skaters there, but I haven't met any skaters there. I did study in Syria before the war, actually 2010.
Oh wow.
And I don't think I had my skateboard though, because at that age I think I was just doing Arabic more, and I didn't see anyone skateboarding there. So I don't. Right. I mean, I know that I think it was a Skate Aid, was it? Built a skate park in Damascus a few years ago. So there are people that do skate there, and I think like Syria now is opening up again. Like a
nice.
Bit more.
Yeah.
I know there's some people in Egypt that skate as well, but we don't really have that much connections with them. But it is something which we're hoping to expand. I know that Aram, our local manager, he studied in Tunisia and has a lot of connections with the skateboarders there. And we did a trip to Tunisia and met the guys there.
Wow.
And there was a new park that was built there recently. So we're hoping there's a bit more of a connection between Tunisia too. But with everything, we would like to do more, especially with the merch. We like to kind of to work and collaborate with other groups and artists and in the area more, and hoping that it just expands. So who knows in the future, but I'd love to, you know, one of the ideas that we had for our shop was to be able to sell stuff on behalf of other like smaller organizations. Basic, right? We have the capacity to print and sell your stuff, and then we can like the Habibi collab or Habibi's collab or something like that. Kind of like that, but mainly, for example, if there's like a group in like a Syria.
That's from Iraq, right? The Habibi one is from Iraq?
This one, well, the guy is like of Libyan, Iraqi heritage, but they're based in Edinburgh. So
okay. All right. So yeah.
But with like, say, for example, there's like a group in Lebanon or Syria that skate, and they're like, right, we want to do more stuff. We want to sell merchandise to make money. We're like, right, well, we can do that over here. You're like a distribution
for that, because you have the infrastructure and you're based in the UK, where it's probably way easier to just manage all of that.
Yeah, it's basically kind of saying like, well, what can we do? Like, what are we in a unique position to do? And something like, you know, being a distributor for like social skate projects, that's something that maybe we've been thinking about going, that could be useful for us to do that. So we're always having one eye ahead of like, once things in Palestine get a bit more regular and we can get things in and out, we're never going to like not work there or be connected there, because we have such a long history there. But it would be great to be able to sort of use the audience that we have. Because I was thinking at the beginning, right, well, once I'm built the parks, I'm done, I'm out. But I don't even need Instagram myself. I'm not on social media, and I really hate that. I'm lucky I can avoid it. I have other people who do it, but I'm realizing now that we do have like a lot of people that follow us and like are invested in what we do, and we've had like, you know, 400 or 500 international volunteers come out through our programs, some of which have gone on to start their own skate NGOs, which has been like amazing to see. So like, right, okay, well, if this is the impact that can have, how else can we have the impact in the future? And like, just like stopping everything is not actually the most useful thing to do, but it's always like something that we speak about to make sure we're on the right line. And we have like a board of directors, we have a board of advisors who we say, right, are we doing the right thing? Like, how can we improve, or what can we do? So very open to doing that. And I think being open to like closing or open to changing what you're doing leads you to make the right decision. People feel free to be like, I think that's the wrong thing, do this instead.
Right. Okay, so just for my last question here, for anybody listening to this, how can they support? What is the best way to support? What are the avenues for support that people can support SkatePal?
Well, like one way is that you can like go to our shop and like buy some of our stuff, and all the proceeds.
Which is awesome, by the way. Like, it's not just like random like printed like share. Like there's really cool stuff on there. By the way, like it's good merch.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But also people do get in touch saying, how can we help? And before, obviously, we had like volunteers who went out there, but now we can basically have like a fundraising pack, and we can help someone like, help them think about organizing a fundraiser, which we really like the idea, because as well as like raising money, you're also kind of being an advocate and sort of like,
right.
spreading the message about Palestine and about what we're doing and skateboarding and the power of skateboarding in this situation. So if people do want to help and they have the capacity to do that, any kind of like fundraising thing is really useful for us and also for the whole scene.
So, we're doing a fundraiser here at Subversive History. We're not the biggest media outlet by any means, but we've done fundraisers before for indigenous groups in Colombia, for a program that gets books to people that are in prison. We did a separate one for Colombia as well for internally displaced peoples and things like that. So we've done this before, and we can raise, some amount of money. So we're hoping that we can do that here. Just outside of like the money that can be brought in, are there any kind of specific kind of like products or anything like that are like specifically valuable in terms of donations? Because I was thinking about going to some of the local skate shops and things like that and asking if they were willing. Maybe they're not willing to like, write a check or something like that, but if they were willing to maybe put out some product, is there any kind of product that's more valuable than others?
I mean, like one thing that is harder to source is trucks. I guess I think because we do produce decks and send it over there, but yeah, that's the other thing is if people have hardware that they want to donate, we have a few people who collect it. There's a guy in the States who's collecting stuff, and they'll ship it all over. Right. And I mean, we'll use it all, and like the more, because you can't be sure of everything that gets in, the more that we send, the greater chance that we have of things heading in. So what I would say is that anyone that does want to donate equipment, just email us at info@skatepal.co.uk, get in touch, and we can connect you with someone who is collecting stuff for us or sending it over. Or in Europe, you can send it to our office in London, and we can send it over as well. But if you have any sort of hardware that you want to donate, it's really useful. We tend to not send over clothes and shoes as much, because we don't want, for example, people to think they have to have certain clothes or shoes in order to skate. But you do need to skateboard in order to skate. So yeah, that's also greatly appreciated.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have. We kind of wrapped up right exactly as an hour. Do you have any parting comments or anything that you'd like that you feel like maybe hasn't been said that needs to be said?
I mean, I think we've covered everything, but yeah, I'm really grateful for having us on the show.
For sure.
It's always nice to be able to speak to anyone who's interested to hear like what's going on. And yeah, just a big shout out to everyone on our team out in Palestine who've been doing an amazing job, especially for the past year and a half. And I don't know how they continue to go, but I'm really lucky to be living where I am. It makes me like appreciate a lot just living in Scotland where everything is fine. And I take my hat off to everyone over there. So yeah.
All right. I think that's a good part to end it. Charlie Davis, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us. I think what you're doing is absolutely awesome. And I super encourage anybody listening to this to check it out, support if you think if it's valid. And if not, just support some way. Even if you don't think it should be through SkatePal, if you want to support and you don't think maybe that's the right thing, just support somehow. But I think SkatePal is particularly awesome. Check out their website. And yeah, have a good day, everybody.
So don't run around here trying to make friends with somebody who's depriving you of your rights. They're not your friends. No, they're your enemies. And treat them like that and fight them, and you'll get your freedom. My repertoire is USSR. Be a low style, be a low style, got thrown out the car. Rise with subversive plots. They'll call you an extremist or subversive or red radical. Rise with subversive plots. Red radical and fight them. Capitalism and democracy. Capitalism and democracy are not synonymous. We do the self like ants in a colony. Organize the wealth